just finished having lunch with a friend who, sorry, I'm trying to fix the camera. A friend who I just finished having lunch with a friend who actually has been a client for, I hope you can hear me, who's been a client for probably 13 years, 12, 13, 14 years. Anyways, he is now 85 years old, and he lives in a retirement home. It's actually a veteran's home. And I guess it's sort of for the ones that are indigent, because before he got in, he's been there for 3 years now, and before he got in, he had to fill out all this paperwork and give proof that he just didn't have enough money to live out in the world. Am I going the right way? I don't know. Anyways, we went out to lunch. We had our usual tea, hot tea, and wonton soup at our Mandarin restaurant, which is really nice. When we talked, and he really seemed to need to talk, and he wanted to, I don't know, confess something I'd already kind of figured out. Right now it's the end of October, and back in April he was in the facility, and he suddenly got taken to the hospital one day, and I got a call because I think I was on his, like, I was a contact, emergency contact, so I got a call, and I went up to the hospital, and he was really out of it. I mean, he couldn't remember things, he couldn't think of things, and I spent about 3 hours with him, and he was really disoriented, really not okay, and I was thinking, man, maybe he had a stroke or something. And anyways, I was there about 3 hours, and I left, and it was a day or two later, he wound up getting moved back to the VA, but not to his room. He was in an area that's assisted living. So he had like 24-hour care, because they still weren't sure what had happened to him. They did scans on his brain, and they did scans all over, and they did all kinds of tests and everything. They couldn't figure it out. And they said he did not have a stroke, which is, that's a relief. But they couldn't figure out what was going on, and he didn't confess anything to me at the time. Nothing. I believed everything that he was, but he's also a known liar. He lies to me. He's 100% a liar about everything, like so many things. And it's something that he feels shame about or embarrassment about, he will definitely lie about. I think everyone does that, but he does it to like the 10th degree. Anyway, so here it is, 6 months later, about a month and a half ago, he mentioned me, and I knew he had stopped drinking because he is an alcoholic, and which I don't think I mentioned that, but he did stop drinking because he could only have like even one drink, and he was, falling down, wetting his pants, couldn't walk, he couldn't even have one. So he realized he had to quit that, and he has. But then apparently he went to a cannabis store and got some edible gummies, he says, and this was, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, he told me about edible gummies that he would take to help him sleep at night because he was having trouble sleeping, and he thought that worked. So anyways, fast forward to now this year, I didn't know he was back eating the edible gummies again, and apparently in April when he got taken to the hospital, I thought about this about a month and a half ago. I thought, I wonder if he was really, really high. because that would explain everything. Because a few days later, and it took a very, very long time for this stuff to get out of his system, then he sort of was almost back to normal, and nobody could figure it out. No, the doctors could figure out what was wrong. They had to have done a blood test and drug tested him. They had to have known it, and maybe they did, and maybe it came up on something, and maybe one of the doctors asked him about it. And I'm sure, I actually asked him today. I said, well, because he brought it up today, and that's why I'm talking about it right now. He had told me, well, you know what I did. And I called him, I sort of called his bluff, because I think he thinks his memory is so, he's got cognitive decline, so his memory is not all there. And I said, well, you were eating the edibles, right? And you probably took too many of them, right? And he just kind of smiled and verified what I thought. I'm like, God damn it, that's what it was. You were freaking high. Freaking high. High as a kite. 85-year-old man in his VA building in the middle of the night, wandering around, same as if he'd been drinking, totally unaware of where he was, falling down, wetting his pants, all this stuff, and almost gets permanently put into assisted living, because he lives in independent living right now, where he can come and go as he pleases and do what he wants and stuff. But if they couldn't correct or figure out something about what had happened to him 6 months ago, he was going to be permanently in assisted living. Anyways, weird story. But so, don't take too many edibles. That's the moral of the story. Bye.